During a high school class project, my teacher told me it's unrealistic being a CEO. It's been my dream to be a CEO since I was 10. So I told her, it is realistic. Follow me on my journey to learn what it takes to become a CEO.
Hey guys, Mikey with Realistic CEO Podcast. Today I'm here with Omar Mohamed. This episode is sponsored by River East School to Career, where their mission is to help kids get into the trades. This episode is a special one here. I knew him since we were like second, third grade.
Oh, wow.
Been low key were rivals when we first met each other. Remember, I gotta share this story real quick. I remember the one time we had a shared gym class, and my shoe came off. My shoe hit him right in the nose. All those things. So
Oh yeah, it started off real. Oh my goodness. As far as I can remember, I just remember how like me and you, it was, yeah, you're right. It was just clash from the beginning. It was just since day one, since we met, it's just been straight up between arguments, you making fun of me, throwing it back at you and back and forth. But then eventually we got to a point where we came across in middle school, and with the help of a little bit of a solid friend group, I won't lie.
yeah.
We ended up coming back together, and it's been solid friendship ever since. But yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. So with this episode, really, what we want to go into is he took the route and going into trades, and I went the college route into start my own business. So we thought it'd be cool to have a conversation on the podcast where we talk about both careers and how we're similar and different. So can you tell us a little bit about why you got into the trade? What made you think trades was something that you wanted to get into?
I'm not gonna lie, honestly, just out of like in high school, I started just normal. Freshman year, it was the same as any other high schooler, just not knowing really what you wanted to do in life or what you were aiming for. But the thing is that we both come from a very similar background when it comes to like our parents being entrepreneurs and whatnot. And I'm not gonna lie to you, for me personally, I wanted to separate myself. I wanted to be a little bit different. I didn't want to be the same as my parents from the get. Ultimately, I wanted the same goal, but I didn't want it to necessarily be handed to me in the sense that like my parents just threw me into the beginning. And I'm not taking any credit from you, don't get me wrong either. I think that what you and your father did, that's another applaud, because it still takes you applying yourself as a young adult to really get to where you are today, even with the guidance of your father or your mother, you know what I'm saying? But the thing is that at the end of the day, for me personally, I didn't want that on my shoulders. I wanted to say that I started it and I came out of high school and I did my own thing. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't go willy-nilly in the beginning. Like it was on the fly. I didn't end up choosing my trade. Like my trade, I've been studying it since 9th grade, but I didn't really take it seriously until probably around the last 6 months-ish of high school, when you look at your watch and you see it says March on your calendar and you're like, oh dang, I gotta pick something soon because you know you're gonna be graduated basically by the time you know it. And I think because of that, I started making some phone calls, and I won't lie, due to the help of one of my teacher that realized I was in that situation. He gave me a little bit of a bump on the back, and he said, listen, I got this company that you can go and work for. They're out of, this city. And from there, I went and I took a little bit of a risky route, and I said, yeah, sure. And at the moment, I just went completely against what my parents said, but I think it was the right way to go for me, at least, because now I don't have to worry about the fact that, and again, it's not like that. Like I still thank my parents for absolutely everything. They did extremely well. And I admire what they've done, and I want to be there one day, but I want to do it through 100% me. But yeah, I don't know. I think that now, about a year and a half into this, I think that I would say that my feet are pretty set in what I want to do long term. And I think that for gaining a little bit of capital and whatnot, this is a good spot for a kid my age to be, you know what I'm saying? But
What trade are you in?
I'm an electrician. I'm not a lineman. I'm an electrician. So we run basically anything that's inside of commercial buildings, residential houses, anything that revolves around that. As for the exterior stuff that you see on the streets and all that stuff, that's done by technically what we consider a whole different trade on paper. But it's essentially the same gist of it all. But at the end of the day, that we're running pipe, we're running what we call MC wire around the buildings and stuff. And That's how we do like outlets, lights, the light switches, this, that. And then sometimes it becomes a little bit more advanced. You're doing switch gears, which is basically like the power coming into the building, like the big clunk, and that's what shuts everything down. That kind of stuff, it gets pretty interesting, and seeing how it takes a little bit of a, I don't know how to say it really. It's just like sometimes it's a different misdemeanor when you're dealing with stuff like that compared to when you're dealing with stuff that's like in a house, which I'm not going to say or call it like easy necessarily, but I would definitely say that you have a lot more room to grow when it comes to the commercial side of things compared to the residential for sure. But yeah, that's really what I do for a living.
So you said that there's a difference between like when you're doing the work inside versus outside. So what's the main difference between that?
So the outside work is considered lineman work. That's utility companies. That's really what they do. But electricians, it's mainly a voltage thing. So like as soon as the power comes inside of your house or a building or anything like that, it caps out at maximum 600 volts. You know what I'm saying? A house ranges from anywhere from 120 to 240 volts. As soon as you jump into a commercial building, something like this, you can go upwards of 277 to 480 volts. But then as soon as you get to some real big industrial stuff, you can go push that 600 volt limit. But anything that like surpasses that, 1,000, 2,000 volts, that's stuff that typically comes down like on the streets, on your power lines. They hit transformers and stuff that go all the way back down to wherever they're sending it from. But and then in some cities they don't have power lines. It's all underground. Depending on where you live, it changes, but they're all the same gist of it all essentially.
So I want to go back to what you talked about in high school. You were at a trade school actually,
Yep.
and you knew that you were at a vocational school actually, and you knew that you wanted to explore trades, but you didn't take it serious until the last 6 months of high school. You said in March of high school.
Yep.
So for you, when was like that turning point when you knew that, and how could you, what's some advice that you would give to somebody that's in that same situation as that you were in?
I won't lie to you. For me, it was more just I panicked towards the end because I went to go and file for my FAFSA and I looked at it and I'm like, this just isn't going to work. I didn't have that luxury of, I say luxury, but it's really not a luxury. It's a benefit that people get from the position that between them or wherever their family is in life. That's their ticket out of it. You know what I'm saying? Which is always a good thing. But unfortunately, I wanted to go and do something that still revolved around electrical. I wanted to do electrical engineering. But at the same time, I looked at the prices. And for me personally, I just knew that I didn't want to be $200,000 in debt by the time I was 22, 23 years old. You know what I'm saying? At what cost? And then, so after weighing out the pros and the cons and looking into it, luckily in March, like I said, I won't lie to you, it was more that phone call that really did it for me. It was my teacher, which I had grown a relatively close relationship with at the time. He gave me a phone call. And from there, I was like, yeah, let's go with it. And I won't lie, I called my parents and I told them, and I got reamed out. They were not supportive about it, but at the same time, on paper, I can understand why. You know what I'm saying? The thing I'm doing, anything construction related, always has its dangers. If you're not using the correct PPE, if you're not doing things with not elegance, but some level of care with your hands. At the end of the day, I've seen in my short year and a half inside of the trade, I've seen quite a bit of ridiculous things and I've heard, because we work with people that are on job sites that come from all different directions. I work with people that come down from Florida, even as far as California, and they come down to be because they specialize in some specific thing on a construction site, and you get to know these people and stuff, and you hear these stories of, not to be gruesome or anything, but this guy that he fell off of a building, he accidentally fell on this, and it's just you hear this stuff, and it just reminds you that you need to be very cautious, because at the end of the day, okay, I might not be necessarily working with certain things that can harm me, but at the same time, you're around that. While I'm doing my little outlet on the floor, there might be a guy behind me with a 10-foot sprinkler pipe, and out of nowhere it turns, and just like that. And those things that's cast iron. Like, that's some big heavy duty stuff, and things like that can definitely be harmful. But to go back to what you were saying though, it was probably I didn't take it seriously. I should have probably taken it a little bit more serious in high school. And I think that if I did, I'd probably be a little bit more educated than where I am right now. But I won't lie, I think being hands-on within the first probably 2-3 months of me working, I can confidently tell you that I learned more in that period of time than I did over the course of the 3-4 years that we were in trade school. And it just wasn't, it's nothing like it.
What is some advice that you would give to somebody in high school that wants to pursue trades?
I think that, can I actually backtrack on that a little bit? I would actually, if we can rephrase this question, not necessarily what advice I would give to somebody that would want to pursue trades, but more so somebody that would want, like, what do they want to do long term as well? Just listen, in high school, you really don't know what you want to do. And I think that's a big portion of all of us. I feel like nobody in high school is like thinking, man, I want to be an electrician, or man, I want to be a construction worker. Nobody's really thinking that with that mindset. Everybody has their mindset on college and what they can do to further themselves in life, because that's what's been portrayed as your typical career. But I also think that using trades as a good like backbone for yourself is really where it should be, because again, if you don't come from the correct background that necessarily benefits you when it comes to you going to college, if you don't have a parent or guardian that, you know, saved all this money for you to basically go there, and you don't have the scholarships and you don't want the student loans, I think that coming into the trade route, at least for the beginning, is a good thing. In my eyes, I think you can take college whenever. I think it's better to, of course, do it when you're young, but when you come across the age of 24, 20 to 30, I think that's fine to still go to college. I don't think that there's a problem going to college at that age, and I don't think that there's necessarily anything like, it shouldn't be looked at as a bad thing, is what I'm getting at. Because if you go to do the trade route, you can still make some level of a good capital and be able to take care of yourself in life and do whatever you need to do on your day-to-day activities and whatnot, and live comfortably without necessarily having that weight on your shoulder of, man, right now I'm 21 years old. I still live with my parents, which is not a bad thing again, but I still live with my parents. I don't own whatever. And you're almost like, and now on top of that, you're $200,000 in debt because of the college you went to. In my head, that's just something that can sit on a lot of people's minds. And I feel like that's really what makes people start going downwards, because they're coming out of, and then the thing is that on top of that, you come out of college, and a lot of times with whatever you're doing and whatever you're studying, you're not getting the maximum pay right out of the gate. You're getting paid a fraction of what you should be. And by the time you look at it, you're making no more than $20, $21, $22 an hour coming out of college with $200,000 in debt to your name. So that can definitely put a lot of pressure on you as a person, and it could put a lot of pressure on, if you're in a relationship, it can put a lot of pressure on your family. It can be like a very demotivating factor. And up until you basically spend the years of gaining experience in the field again, now you're freaking 30 years old, and by the time you look at it, you're finally rolling onto a wage that's livable. And I won't lie to you, I think now, the way that we have it in our generation, it's extremely easy. I'm not gonna lie, compared to the old generation. And this is something that came from COVID, in my opinion, because when have you heard of online schooling before COVID? I will say that college being online and whatnot after COVID has been a ridiculous. I think it's a tool, because if I can work a full-time job doing what I do and somehow still be working towards a level of some type of degree, whether it's my master's, my bachelor's, whatever you're studying in college, you're still being able to live comfortably without an excessive burden, because, okay, now I don't have to go to school at 11 o'clock in the morning, and what? And I think it's always nice to still go and try to get your college experience if you have the resources and the tools to do. But the thing is that some people don't. Some people need money right out the gate. They need to make a certain amount of money to be able to live, and live comfortably is the big part. And on top of that, you need to be able to pay off your college somehow. So if you can start while you're still younger, that's where I think it's good to do it. I think online college is probably one of the best tools that we have nowadays, because like I said, I can go work my 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then from there I can go and study for another 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon and call that my day. And I'm not sacrificing anything when it comes to work, but at the same time, I'm still getting all the benefits long term of being a doctor or being a psychiatrist or anything, whatever you're studying in college. But yeah.
All right. You're 19, right?
Yeah, I am actually.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm 19 too.
Yeah.
How are you able to develop this mindset? Because there's not a lot of 19 that have the mindset that you have.
Again, that's just something that comes with, I won't lie to you. It comes with having a good group of people around you growing up, between my parents, between some of the people that we met, that we have common mutual, and in middle school, high school, all these relationships of seeing people that are doing well. I think in my head, it's a motivating factor, because at the end of the day, if you surround yourself with people that are constantly, they don't want much in life, they're not really striving to be something necessarily, that puts something in your mindset that, man, if these people aren't worried, why should I? And I think that's that's something that can definitely add a weight onto your brain, if you will, because it's going to get you nowhere. It's like there's too many people nowadays that do that, and eventually it's going to get to a point where that's going to collapse. And I think that if you go out of your way to realize that the people that you're hanging around with or associating with on a daily basis really aren't the best for you long term, I think that's probably where you should cut that tie, or you should slowly back away. I'm not saying you don't necessarily have to cut the tie, but if you're blunt enough, then yes. If not, I understand why you would want to just slightly distance yourself and focus on either yourself or focus on trying to create new relationships that potentially benefit what you want to do long term. Not necessarily what you want to do with your career long term, but what you want to do generally long term. We have some friends that they're valedictorians from different high schools for our grade. And in my opinion, I think that seeing those mentalities day to day, going in and out of, this has to get done, this has to get done, this has to get done. You see it. And even if you don't bring it to the table, you have that around you. You know what I'm saying? So when the time comes that you want to maybe make a shift towards going this direction or going that direction, you can make it a lot more seamlessly, because now you know what's the standard and what needs to be met. But I think that's the big majority of how I've got my processing and stuff, and how I'm able to think the way I do.
I liked how you talked about separating from your friend group, because I had Kayshawn Sanders, co-founder of Follow My Steps. He talked about how you don't have to cut off your friends, but you just want to put them in your certain friend group buckets that allow you to still be friends with them. For example, he talked about how having friends for like outside of work have fun and play games with. You want to have your work friends, and then you want to have your friends where you're able to talk about like your goals and your journeys. So
yeah, I actually agree with that. That you said it probably better than I could have, because again, I'm a real blunt person, and I've always been that way. Unfortunately, it's probably what's going to end up stabbing me back in the back down the line from now. But I think that doing it that way is probably the best way, because for me, it's a little difficult to separate those conversations, because I don't know, I'm very big on just getting things done, and I want all my conversations to be productive. I want my conversations to be about being somewhere good in life. But if you do certain activities or things, that I think that's definitely where it's good to put, that this person likes this and you like that, make that a good common interest and leave it at that. I think incorporating anything else from beyond that, it can definitely be harmful towards you guys' relationships, because at the end of the day, like you just said, if you're talking to somebody and you're talking about business and your podcast and whatnot, and they're on the new 2K that's out, it's like at the end of the day, you guys are losing it. But if you guys are both talking about the game that you guys both, I think that's where you guys are good, and that's a good spot to settle down at.
Yeah, that works too though, because I've met some good people like on this 2K, and like when they were like, I don't know how we ended up getting into some conversations, but somehow I was talking about what I've been doing with Realistic CEO, where he was a high school senior. He was talking about how what I was doing was super inspirational, and so I feel like there are some times where you can be on the game and find people that are good for the game, but also you can find common interests as well. So it's really just coming down to being able to figure out and feel like the type of people that you're talking to and being friends with as well. So for you, I want to go into, I remember you shared a story with me about having somebody that was similar age to you on the job and they ended up falling out. So how were you able to stay on, especially as a 19-year-old, working with all these grown men, and you're able to stay on task and get the job done compared to some of the other 19-year-olds in your career?
I won't lie. It's a very competitive field. Something that we learned from the beginning of high school. In the beginning of high school, I vividly remember the first words coming out of my teacher's mouth. Listen, if you want it more than this guy, then you'll be fine. But if you don't, you're going to fall off. And that's for anything. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you've got to want it more than the next person. And if you don't, unfortunately, that's just going to be where you lack. And eventually it comes down to the little things. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm an outstanding person and I know this inside and out. I have so much more to learn, but it comes down to applying yourself. Are you showing that you have this interest to really learn more than that guy? Because that's what it is. I express that I'm an apprentice and there's a licensing process to my trade. And I think that while you're an apprentice, you want to show what you can do to the best of your abilities. And I think if you're doing that, if you're showing that you have good communication skills and listening skills is probably the biggest one, because if you can't sit there and really retain information and really be open-minded to what the person, your superior, is telling you on a day-to-day basis, you're probably not going to go that far in anything in life, period, but definitely not in the trades, because our trade is so technical and the things that I do on a day-to-day basis can really kill you. No exaggeration. This is a very dangerous thing that I mess with on a day-to-day basis, but it's just, if you're not listening to what the person that's done this for the last 20, 30 years is basically telling you, how do you expect to learn? How do you expect to grow? And that's where the fallout happens. And I won't lie, I got an opportunity that definitely has helped me in between financially and learning. Just, I've got paired with a guy that just happened to be very educated. And I think that portion it's allowed me to sail the boat, because without him, I probably wouldn't be where I am. But I'm also not going to discredit the person who I was fortunate with to work with beforehand, because I won't lie to you. In the beginning, I worked with a guy that was probably about 20, 25 or 26 years old, and he knocked it into me. It took mistakes and mistakes, and I got reamed out day after day for silly mistakes, and that molds you into somebody that eventually, in his eyes, he looks at me and he's, oh, this kid is just another person. I eventually got to where he is now 10 months later after working with that 25-year-old. But if you look at it like 8 or 9 months before, I was like, yeah, making mistakes, not doing things correctly, not using my listening ears, and little things like that they teach you in kindergarten. They really are important. And those are some of the most essential things that you should be making sure that you're definitely keeping up with when you're working on construction sites, not just for your growth, but for your safety. Like I said earlier, I've heard ridiculous stories that, well, I'm not going to go into, but they mess with your head. And for some people, they really do scare you and they stick with you. Like me, I'm a little bit of a sis, if you want to call it that, but I don't like messing around with anything that can harm me or mess any of my hands. You only got one set of them. You only got one set of hands. You only got one set of eyes. You only got 2 ears. That's just how it is. And you don't want to mess up an opportunity to maintain these for the rest of your life. And I think that's a really big portion of it, is just listening.
I liked how you said that, because on the Realistic CEO podcast, they also, when I interview these successful leaders and CEOs, they always talk about how important it is to be able to be an active listener, like you said, and be able to communicate. So I thought it was cool that you were able to say that. That's like probably one of the most important things on your job site. So that's the same exact thing that if you were to go watch the Realistic CEO podcast, where people are always saying that being able to listen is a great trait that you need as a leader, but also to, like you said, to learn and to grow as well. What do you see your long-term goal is?
I'll be honest, I really don't want to necessarily do this trade long-term. I don't want to be in the trades long-term, but for me currently, it's better than going and working somewhere where they're offering the minimum wage. And on top of that, you really have no growth in the next 3 to 4 years from now. If you're staying in the same position at the same spot that really has no ceiling to grow, you're really not going to go nowhere. But at least in what I do right now, this is considered your typical career type job. You know, if you're not going to college and you're not doing anything that involves a degree of some sort, this right here is your this is where it is. In my licensing process, once I'm completely finished with it all, I'll have a job that I know at the end of the day is going to support my back in case of anything that I want to try down the line. So if I want to go and I want to open my business and become a entrepreneur that runs a coffee shop, for example, I can go and do that. And now I have the funds to go and do that. But on top of that, on the backside, I know that if this doesn't work correctly and it doesn't work the way I want it to, I can go back to what I know, my bread and butter, if you will. And I think that portion and knowing that in my head is going to bring me to where I want to be in life. I do want to be some level of entrepreneur. I think that another reason that I'm in the trade right now is because I couldn't make that decision by the time that high school ended. I wanted to go and I did want to just hop into running my own company, but I won't lie, I wasn't educated enough. And because of that, by the time that I looked at the time, I was like, I don't have enough more time in high school, and I'm going to be out of high school soon enough, and I'm not going to college. And on top of that, I'm not opening my own business. So what's the next best option? And for me, this was the next best option. And I won't lie to you, I almost feel like it was destined to be this way, because I wouldn't have the opportunities that I have right now doing what I do if it wasn't because of college not working out, if it wasn't because of me not spending the extra time in 11th and 10th grade even developing the business that I would be opening by the time I'm in 12th, you know what I'm saying, and graduated. And I think that little things like that I did in the past definitely impacted my future for sure. But I won't lie, I think it impacted it not in a negative way. I won't say a positive way, but I won't say it's a negative way either. I think it's a very neutral way, and I think that it ended up just working out for me. It's me specifically. It might not have worked out for you. It might not have worked out for the next kid. But I know that for me, and if you probably sit there and you actually are going to trade school and you're applying yourself and you're really, making sure that you're getting all your stuff done, and that's something you want to do for at least the first 4 or 5 years of your life out of high school, I think that you need to sit down and really make it work. I think if you want it to work, it'll work. And yeah, I would say that's pretty much that.
What has been your favorite job site that you worked on so far?
Okay, so this was a good one. I had a job. It was in downtown Springfield, and it was the state office building. So this is the building that like the Senate goes, and whenever they're down here, they come down to this building. And I won't lie, was it just a typical other job? Yeah, it was just, we had probably about 300 light fixtures to swap out, and it was just rewiring the majority of the ceiling. And then we had another, it's called a lightning protection system. So basically, if a lightning hits this building, it like negates any damage that it would have done. That's how it works. So that was another interesting project. And I won't lie, that project for me, I think was my favorite because it taught me so much in those, it probably went on for about 6 months if I were to guess. But that project taught me so much in those 6 months, working especially with that 25-year-old at the time. And man, it was a great space. It was a great spot to make mistakes. I'll say that. If there was anywhere that, and any time that I should have made a mistake, it was with this guy at this job, because it gave me that comfortability to learn. It gives you that room, because at the end of the day, you know how to do it right, and you have 300 attempts to do it right. But at the end of the day, you're probably going to mess some of those up. And I was fortunate enough to basically be in a spot where I could grow pretty well over the course of the 6 months that we were there, basically. And I would probably say that was one of my favorites. I also had another one recently where it's a dormitory up in Amherst, and that one was pretty cool too, because we were making like a rec room and a meeting room. So it's like a basement level, and we're just designing how the pipe is going to go to here and this and that. And it gave me a lot more pipe experience. And on top of that, once it was time, it got close to time, like that time where students started moving into the dormitory. It was interesting seeing kids my age finally rolling into what they're going to do in their lives. And this is going to be a place where they're stationed. And now that dormitory, it houses like 165 people after it was fully moved in. And just think about that. I basically contributed to them having a little kitchen that they can go to at nighttime. I contributed to them having an enjoyable rec room, for them having good their meetings and whatnot. I wired up the mini splits and stuff that are there. So I know that basically that place is cooled because of a portion that I contributed to and things like that. You just think about it. And if I walk in there 5 or 10 years later, I can go and basically sit here and say, wow, look at that. Wow, look at that. I did that. And I think that portion is always, it's always a nice thing on some of these jobs. But yeah, I would probably say those two were up there with my favorites that I contributed to.
So like you talked about like this is something that you see yourself, you don't want to do like long term, but it's something that you want to do because it's a good way to start off, but you also like it as a backup plan if your business might not be like as you thought it was. So was this like always your thought process behind maybe, okay, I want to do this trade just in case I have a plan B to fall back on in my future?
I will say that the trade wasn't always the plan B. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur for sure. And I always knew in the back of my head that I wanted something to fall back on. But I won't lie to you, I did not think that doing a trade would be the thing that I would end up wanting to fall back on. I was thinking it could have been anything else. And again, I'm thinking in high school, so I don't really have it fully developed in my head as to what I necessarily want to do. But at the same time, I was able to come to a nice conclusion towards the end of high school that kind of got not forced upon me, but it fell upon me, we'll say. It definitely fell into my hands, and it was an opportunity that I definitely wasn't going to throw away. And I'm happy I didn't, because now I'm able to work on some real interesting jobs all over Amherst, Greenfields, Northampton, all types of jobs up in that area. Some down here, down in Springfield, Longmeadow, East Longmeadow. So I get to do a lot of different things and see a lot of different methods on how this person does that and how that, just anything along those lines. But yeah, I would say that.
What has been the biggest lesson that you've learned so far inside your trade?
The biggest lesson, man, that's a tough one. Don't play games. Don't play games. I've seen a guy get blown off of a ladder because he was messing around. So whether even it comes with like just your phone is not something you want to play around with. If I'm on the ladder dealing with something that's 277, 480 volts, I know to you that doesn't mean much, but for somebody that's in the field, that's like a real dangerous thing if you're not careful. I've seen dozens of lights blow up in freaking parking lots of like parking lots like this. And it's just because of negligence. Sometimes, of course, there's accidents that happen, but it's definitely don't play games. This isn't something to go and joke around with or mess around with when it's in your hand. Or I see some of the old timers you'll even see on jobs, they'll go and they'll like he'll lick his thumb and he'll lick his pinky and then touch like 2 of the wires together and like he'll get shocked. And I'm like, you're playing with your life right there. You know what I'm saying? All you need is for one good shock to go through your body. And that's that. All it takes is half an amp to kill you. And that's no different than your light switch at home. So don't play games is probably my biggest thing. And this isn't just with electricity. This is with anything that has to do with construction, period. Because it's not necessarily 100% all the time. Some guy could be building this wall and he's at the top and drops a metal stud on you, and that's real thin stainless steel metal. And little stuff like that can definitely catch up to you. When it comes to your PPE, your personal protective equipment, that kind of stuff is crucial. When I'm drilling a metal box, all it takes is for one little piece to go into your eye to permanently mess up your eyesight. And things like that I find ridiculous. And it's not uncommon. It's not like these are stories that you hear roaming around. Like the kid that I used to work with, the 25-year-old, he literally used to have that issue that I just mentioned. Like the little piece of metal that got stuck in his eye ended up rusting after no more than a day. And because he didn't get it removed immediately, he has permanent, not eyesight loss, but if he's not like using his sunglasses out in the sun, it's like instant migraines. And it's just, I can't imagine living like that just because of the fact that I didn't spend a second to go and put on my safety glasses. If you're walking up a ladder and thankfully we get to wear our hard hats all day, and that's what you should do. Even on job sites that don't require hard hats, I still think it's nice to wear them, because last week, walking up a ladder and there's a piece of rod. sticking up from the ceiling, and I jammed my head directly into it. And I can just imagine how that would have felt if I didn't have my PPE on, because it's just anything that it falls into those lines. Is don't play games with it, and just be safe and make sure that look at the bigger picture long term. In the moment, it might feel a little corny or a little silly to go and put on your glasses or put on your little earbuds or whatnot, but long term, you'll be thanking yourself because it's not something to mess around with. But
I wrote a book with my dad, so I'm gonna read it to you real quick.
all right, yeah, sure.
The book is called "I Am a CEO," Realistic CEO.
I love that. That's great. I really do. Honestly, that was a nice book. I like that. And you wrote that all yourself?
Yeah. So before I co-wrote it with my dad.
Yeah.
It took us 4 months to get it, like the first issue finished. We got it published last July, and then we're on what edition is this one? This is the 5th edition, but we're gonna end up at 6th edition by the time.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
I like it though. Honestly, I really do.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Thank you. So after reading this book, Tony, he talks about the LBW, the long, lonely, born work.
Oh man. Yeah. The long, lonely, born work. I like that. The LBW. So it's a necessity. It's required for anything that revolves or involves success. If you want to get somewhere in life, yeah, you're going to have to sit there and you're going to have to take the path that unfortunately is going to suck at some portion. At some point, it's going to just not necessarily to be the funnest. And you got to come to that in your head, come to that realization, and don't give up during that period of time. I would say, this is for anything really. You don't want to give up when the times are slow. You want to, if anything, that's when you push yourself more to continue it on and making sure that everything is still working. As long as everything is working in the long-term picture, take that period. And in my eyes, the LBW, if you will, I think that's the break time, because it's just repetition. It's something that you're doing consistently. It's going to be the same thing over and over again. Guess what? You wake up in the morning, you know what's going to happen. So instead of making it considered the boring work, listen, take it as a chill pill, because after the LBW period is over, you're going to be pushing yourself 2 times, 3 times harder, because now this is where that, in my opinion, I think what comes after that period of time is like the period where you end up having to really push yourself to follow through with all that hard work that you put in, whether it was 2, 3, 4, 10 years even before, to get to where you really want. So even once that period's done, expect it to just be a whole lot more, because it's never done. It's never done at the end of the day. And that's really where I think enjoy that period, because trust and believe that it's not finished. The journey is never finished, but I think that's the period that you should take it easy, relax, enjoy yourself during that time, because it's going to be a long journey for sure.
That was a great answer, by the way. Great answer. You sound like the CEOs I had on the podcast. I'm so you know right now.
What can I say?
So the last question is, what's one fun fact about yourself that nobody really knows?
Ooh, you're putting me on the spot here. What is one fun fact that nobody knows? I won't lie to you. I don't think I have any. I'm a real secluded, very simple person. Everything on the outside, that's what it is on the inside. And I don't know. I feel like I don't necessarily have anything that I keep from people. I feel like I'm always eager to express little things that have happened in my life and go and tell anybody. That's just always been my thing. But I'm sure that there's some embarrassing story out there that I even probably erased from my own memory that is, I wouldn't consider it a fun fact, but it's a fact. But there's something out there for sure, probably that I forgot 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago. But yeah, I really don't know. I'm sorry. You guys forget about.
So what's one fun fact about yourself? Then it doesn't got to be something that nobody knows. Just what's one fun fact about yourself?
One fun fact, I think. What is one good one? I drink water weird. I think that's probably I have like it's undiagnosed, but it's called like Marcus Gunn syndrome. But when I like drink, or if I'm really enjoying something, like you could see my eye just starts twitching upwards, and it's like I can like like that. But yeah, when I'm really enjoying something, you'll see that thing going on and off. It looks like a light flickering. Oh my goodness, it's bad. But yeah, that's probably all I got. Like I said, I'm not the funnest person in the world. Yeah.
All right. We just want to thank you for coming on,
Oh,
taking a little time out of your day for this. So thank you.
I thank you because I hope that at the end of the day, I really do want this to reach people out there that are debating this and that in their life and but still want some level of success. And I want this to be known as like a different way to do it. And yeah, I thank you for letting me basically put the word out there. And I hope that this kind of gets at least out to some kids, even if it's one other person out there that is not really certain about what they want to do long term, but it'll open them up to going towards this path, and at least they'll know that it's okay. And it's not what it's portrayed to be on the outside as just a down spot. It's something you can definitely make into a livable career for sure.
Thank you, Carl. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to thank every single one of you for all the support that you've shown me in this past year of my journey of becoming the realistic CEO. So ways that you can support even more is by going onto my website, www.realisticCEO, and ordering your copy of the Realistic CEO book. So thank you for all support. See you in the next episode. Peace.